Please give a warm welcome to a courageous and outspoken champion for the unborn and for the American family, Phyllis Schlafly.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you, dear friends. It is so exciting to be here today and to see that so many of you care enough about the future of our great land to come and participate in this conference. I want to congratulate Pat Robertson and Ralph Reed for motivating so many people to participate in our great process of self-government. You right here in this room have the energy and the talent and the resources that are adequate to turn this country around and put us on the road to victory. There are a lot of subjects that you and I have worked together on, particularly the education issues, but there is one central overriding issue of our time, and that is the sanctity of human life. There are people every day who hope that this issue will go away, will disappear, but it is not going to disappear. It is the central moral issue of our time. And it was thrust upon us by the Supreme Court decision in Roe versus Wade in 1973. In that decision, which was not based on law or science or medicine, the court said they didn't know when life begins. Well, abortion is not about the beginning of life. It's about the killing of life, or as they call it, the termination of life. And we know so much more about that life today than we did when I was having my 6 children. The advances have been tremendous in the last 20 years. We now know that they can take the DNA 3 days after conception and determine whether it's male or female. Well, male or female what? It's not a male or female dog or cat or tumor or cactus. It's a male or female human being. And every time new parents look at the ultrasound and they see their baby on the screen, we have new pro-lifers. Every time the ultrasound happens, we can see those perfectly formed little hands and feet. We can see the baby clench its fist and turn somersaults, and we know that it is human, it is alive, and it is growing. And abortion is the killing of that human life. It is a scandal in our land that cannot continue. Our country's founding document is the Declaration of Independence. There are those who wish it weren't around because it is our country's great religious document. It mentions God 5 times. God is creator. God is the source of all rights. God is the supreme lawmaker. God is the supreme judge. And God is our patron and protector. Fortunately, the Supreme Court cannot reinterpret the Declaration of Independence. It is there for all time. The Declaration that proclaims that our Creator created us and gave us our unalienable rights is our founding document, and you have to ask yourself, when did we get those rights? It wasn't at birth, because sometimes babies pop out sooner, and we find they are babies after all, even if they show up at 7 months instead of 9. So we know there is no logical way to say when the individual gets those rights, except at the very beginning. You began your life when the DNA of your father joined the DNA of your mother. There are those who proclaim the right to abortion, but as Abraham Lincoln said, you cannot have the right to do wrong. Now, The Republican Party was founded on the principle that no human being can be the property of another, even though the Supreme Court held that the slave could be the property of his masters. Essentially, Roe versus Wade did the same thing. It said that the unborn baby could be the property of the mother, but that cannot be. And we are very proud that our great Republican President, Ronald Reagan, proclaimed Sanctity of Human Life Day in these words. He said, "The right to life belongs equally to babies in the womb, babies born handicapped, and the elderly or infirm. That we have killed the unborn for so many years does not nullify this right, nor could any number of killings ever do so. The unalienable right to life is found not only in the Declaration of Independence, but also in the Constitution that every president is sworn to preserve, protect, and defend. Both the 5th and 14th Amendments guarantee that no person shall be deprived of life without due process of law. Our nation cannot continue down the path of abortion so radically at odds with our history, our heritage, and our concepts of justice. This sacred legacy and the well-being and future of our country demand that protection of the innocents must be guaranteed and that the personhood of the unborn be declared and defended throughout our land." That's what Ronald Reagan said. Now, we look for a national confirmation of this sacred right to life. We see it in Reagan's proclamation, and we see it in the platform of the Republican Party. That is important to you, whether you are a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, because it is a national official statement that we respect the right to life of the unborn baby, and that it has the fundamental individual right to life which cannot be infringed. You must be aware of the tremendous campaign that is being carried on to eliminate this pro-life plank. Where does it come from? Well, it comes from several sources. One is from the feminists, the radical feminists who look upon the right to kill the unborn baby as the premier woman's right. And I urge you, every time you see somebody on television talking about women's rights, that you think to yourself, is this a person who thinks the premier woman's right is the right to kill her unborn baby? Because that is the way the feminists look at it. In 1977, they all trooped down to Houston with our tax dollars, all of the feminists you ever heard of, with Bella Abzug in charge, and they proclaimed what they wanted, their agenda for America. It was abortion on demand, paid for by the taxpayers. It was the whole gay and lesbian agenda. It was the Equal Rights Amendment. It was the government taking care of all children and affirmative action for women and women in combat. Well, this same crew is now over in Beijing trying to sell their ideology and agenda to the whole world. They're not going to do it, are they? No. Great. Just remember, they always want us to pay for it, too. But there's another source of the effort to take the pro-life plank out of the Republican Party, and it is the abortion industry, specifically Planned Parenthood, that performs 130,000 abortions every year. It's a very wealthy organization. It has hundreds of millions of dollars. A lot of people don't know it, but 34% of the income of Planned Parenthood comes from the taxpayers. Now, a few weeks ago, we made a big effort in Congress to cut off this flow of money to the abortion industry. And at the last minute, there was some maneuvering that saved the money for Planned Parenthood. You and I have to work to have enough votes there in Congress next year to make sure that that money is cut off. Now, with all that money, Planned Parenthood is extremely clever, and they have set up a front organization to carry out, to safeguard their flow of money. It is called Republicans for Choice. And a lot of people think that that's just a genuine Republican organization trying to make a better Republican platform. Don't believe it. It is financially and legally tied to Planned Parenthood. How do I know? Because I've just seen their latest fundraising mailing. And they invite you to send money to support Republicans for Choice, to take the pro-life plank out of the Republican platform. Send your money to Planned Parenthood in New York City. I also have in my hand copies of the documents filed with the U.S. Commissioner of Trademarks, in which Planned Parenthood trademarked the name Republicans for Choice. They own it. It's part of the abortion industry, and they are trying to protect their money. We are not going to let them dictate the plank in the Republican platform. Now, this time around, they have some prominent people who are specifically trying to take out the plank. We, however, even though these people have big names and great access to the media, we are not going to let the Arlen Specters, the Christine Whitmans, or the Pete Wilsons take the pro-life plank out of the Republican platform. This is why it is very important that we get pledges from all the candidates for office at every level to sign our pledge to support the readoption of the pro-life plank, which proclaims that the unborn child has a fundamental individual right to life which cannot be infringed. It's not enough that candidates will tell you they have a pro-life record. The pro-life record looks to the past. The pledge looks to the future, and we want commitments for the future. Do we want a Republican nominee who supports the right to life of unborn babies? Yes, you bet we do. Do we want a vice presidential nominee who supports the right to life? Yes, that's right. And that is very important in this uncertain world. The majority of the Republican candidates for president have signed the pledge, as well as dozens and dozens of congressmen and senators. The Republican presidential candidates who've signed it in alphabetical order are Buchanan, Dornan, Graham, Keyes, and Lugar. But we want them all to sign it. We know this is where the mainstream of our party is. This morning's newspaper called this the controversial pro-life plank. Believe me, in the Republican Party, this plank is not nearly as controversial as affirmative action, as NAFTA and GATT, as immigration, as Prop 189. There are all kinds of subjects that are more controversial, because in the last convention, they couldn't even muster up enough support to get a debate on the floor of the convention. We know that the majority of the Republican Party is pro-life. But for those who may have some doubts, you should look at the election of last November. It was an overwhelming manifestation of the pro-life vitality in this country. For months, the media were telling us that being pro-life was an albatross around the necks of candidates and that would hurt them at the polls. Not one single incumbent Republican pro-life congressman was defeated last year, and about 50 new ones were elected. Including 6 beautiful, talented, capable, conservative, pro-life Republican women, and we are so proud of them. So are you going to work hard for the next year to elect more pro-lifers to Congress so that we can cut off the money to the abortion industry? Will you try to run for delegate or make sure that your delegate to the Republican convention is a committed pro-lifer? Yes. Now, the tens of millions of babies who've been killed by abortion in this country are a terrible national scandal. You and I know that we've been promised that if we humble ourselves and seek the Lord, He will forgive our sins and He will heal our land. And there's a lot of healing to do. So I hope you will pray as though it were all up to God. But I hope you will work as though it's all up to you, because it is not the Lord's job to stuff the ballot box for us. He has a lot more important things to do than that, and we have our mission to take care of the votes to get the right candidates. I believe that God has given each one of us a mission in this life. Part of my mission has been to go out and debate the feminists and let them call me nasty names, and to go on the college campuses and face audiences of snarling, hissing, booing feminists. You don't have to do that. But you have a mission that is just as important in this task. Every one of you can sign this pledge so that we are able to contact you next year and tell you who are the pro-life candidates in your area. A lot of people don't know whether their delegate candidates are pro-life or not. I hope that you will take copies of the pledge and get candidates all up and down the line, from president, senator, congressman, state legislator, local candidates, candidates for delegate to the Republican convention, and candidates for all the party offices who will all be elected in the early part of next year. Make them sign their commitment to respect the right to life of the unborn baby. Make them sign their commitment to support qualified pro-life candidates. And then maybe you can run for delegate yourself. Maybe you can meet me in San Diego next August so that we can make sure that we preserve this one great national official statement that we respect the right to life of the unborn baby. The work we do to make sure that this process of self-government functions can be very tiresome, very wearisome, but just remember, those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall rise up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. So I am urging you to run and not be weary, because we need you to protect the life of all those millions of unborn babies, to make sure that we can turn our country around and be on the road to victory. With your help, the Republican National Convention next year will be a source of pride to the vast majority of Americans, not just Republicans, but to all those who believe in what is right and good for America. With your help, we will elect a president and a vice president and a Congress who are committed to restoring the legal rights of unborn babies. And with the help of Almighty God, the source and author of all rights, we will prevail. We'll be on the road to victory.